Good morning, and wishing everybody still a very Merry Christmas. We're here. It's Saturday, the 27th of December. So we're going to do a slightly different edition of Margins and Mortar today. Mortar and Margins, in fact, as the show is called correctly today. Adam, happy Christmas to you. I hope you had a good one. I know
Thank
that
you,
you
Duncan.
have several interests outside of property. Okay. And one of them I happen to know is quizzes, and you are a champion quizzer. Is this correct?
I'm not sure about champion, but I did manage to beat CJ Demui once. That was my claim to fame.
Yeah, on TV, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So that's pretty impressive for me. And I seem to remember that many, many years ago, you were pretty good in the pub quiz. So this week, I have prepared a short quiz, which is going to play to some of your strengths. But I'm also going to invite everybody who's watching to join in, play along. Adam's going to have a guess at the answer, probably a bit more than a guess if I know him well. And everybody else can just put in anything you think, have your own guess, make a comment, tell me when you think I got the question wrong, stick it in the comments. Adam will pick on that, and then we're going to give you the answers, and you can see how you perform against the real estate mogul, which is Adam Lawrence. Right, Adam, you ready to kick off?
Ready to go, Duncan.
Okay, there's no time pressure. You can take as long as you want to answer the questions, but I will be very disappointed if you get anything less than about 98%. So, can you name all 9 members of the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee?
Oh, you really are playing to my strengths on this one. That's jolly nice of you. So we'll start with the governor, Andrew Bailey, least well qualified person on the committee, in my opinion. I'll rattle through the external members of the committee, so the non-executives. So you've got Megan Green. She's slightly hawkish and probably the one I agree with the most. Catherine Mann, American, fairly hawkish lady, although she did vote 0.5% for a 0.5% cut in February this year, which was a bit of a surprise to everyone involved. Alan Taylor, who's only relatively recently joined the committee, who's very much a dove, someone who wants to see lower rates because he's concerned about the current state of the UK economy. Well, who isn't Alan, let's face it. And Swati Dhingra, who's also a significant dove who wants the rates to be cut. So that's the externals. The chief economist, who really should be the most preeminent economist on the panel, Hugh Pill. And then you've got the 3 deputy governors. So one deputy governor for monetary policy itself, Claire Lombardelli, who replaced Ben Broadbent about 18 months ago. And then you've got the other 2 deputy governors, so Sarah Breeden and Dave Ramsden.
Right, Adam, I don't think I'm going to leave too much time here to let everybody know that you got that correct. So that is 100% so far from the first warm-up question. We have another warm-up question coming up as well, so you can, I'll give you a couple to hit out the park straight away, but I'll warn you, it may get a little bit tougher at times. So, how many times have interest rates moved in 2025 in the UK?
How many times they moved in 2025? 4 times, 4 quarter basis point cuts. Would you like me to tell you when?
Yeah, of course I do.
I thought you would. February, May, August, and of course our Christmas present for December, Duncan.
Absolutely. Okay, so that is absolute a 2 out of 2, 100%. I hope everybody watching has got 2 out of 2 as well. I have to say I would have struggled with the MPC members. A few years ago I'd have got them, but I'm a bit rusty on that at the moment. Right now, Adam, what is the current benchmark interest rate in Zimbabwe?
What a belter. Well, what do we know about Zimbabwe? This is how we have to work it in quiz questions when we don't know the answer, isn't it? What do we know about Zimbabwe? Famous for I think it was the 5 trillion note that you used to see the occasional picture of? All the old stories about, taking a pram of banknotes to the shop and the prices have gone up since you left the house and things like that. So they've obviously got significant issues around inflation historically. You don't hear it mentioned as often as, say, Argentina has been in the news these days, that has a particularly high interest rate. But you're going to have to see it somewhere I would assume somewhere in the reasonable double digits. So let's say 36%, Duncan.
Right, Adam, that's a guess, is it?
It is.
Okay. You know they've got this currency now, the Zimbabwe gold. You know about that?
So they have a currency pegged to the price of gold.
Pegged to the price of gold. And I'm going to say, Adam, that's a pretty good guess. right? It's a pretty good guess, but it's not right.
What a
The correct
shame.
answer was 35%.
Damn. Must
So
try harder.
I'm very glad that I found a question that you couldn't do. So unfortunately, you just slipped slightly there. Even though it's just the barest, the slimmest of edges through to the keeper, I feel that I've got one past you. Right. Okay. The next question. Former NBA player Carlos Boozer. Are you familiar with Carlos Boozer?
I have heard of him, yes.
Okay. Are you an NBA fan?
I do like a bit of it's the amount of stats and data that appeal to a geek like me, Duncan, of
Yeah,
course.
I would have thought so. Right. So he used some of his earnings during his career to buy some property, and he bought a property in Los Angeles, a very nice, very smart property. He was very proud of it, and he had a bit of an issue with a tenant, which is how he gets into this quiz. And the tenant turned one of the bedrooms into a hair salon, and he painted purple symbols on many of the walls. Can you name that tenant?
Well, for some reason, I'm drawn to Prince being the answer to this tenancy. I wonder if it
Okay.
was. I'm going to go with the artist formerly known as Prince, Duncan.
Right. You think there was a clue there in the purple symbols, do you?
I believe there may have been.
Okay. Let's see. What is the correct answer? The correct answer is the artist formerly known as Prince. Congratulations. Who apparently himself is a big NBA fan. Was very taken by
Yeah.
the fact that Boozer had created an NBA, a mini basketball pitch inside the house. It's not called a pitch, it's called a court. And he did take over the house, but Boozer was very shocked when he came back, and he had some golden lions outside the property. Those have been removed. He said he had some lovely sort of gentle pastel decor inside. All the carpets have been replaced with black carpets, apparently. There was purple carpet leading up to the doorway. One of the doors had been knocked through. There was all these extra plugs in the wall so that Prince could have his lighting for his hair salon. He'd created some kind of disco room where the weights room was, and Carlos Boozer was very upset about this and expressed it to Prince a number of times, apparently without response. He kept hassling him, and eventually Prince kind of came back and said, "Don't worry, I'll make it all good before I leave, before the end of the tenancy." Boozer didn't really believe him, but apparently when he moved back, everything was exactly as it had been before, and all the remedial work had been done, and he couldn't have told the difference. So it's a happy ending for that relationship. So, Adam, what was the result of the vote of the third reading of the Renters' Rights Bill?
What a
What was the
great
result in
question.
Parliament?
So is the third reading in the Commons or in the Lords, Duncan?
In the Commons, Adam.
Just had to check that one, of course. I would strongly suspect that. I think in this one, every amendment was voted down and it stayed as it went into the third reading, and the current incumbent government took a pretty hardline view.
Right. So can you give me numbers?
So I think there would have been, in terms of how many amendments were proposed, I think there were lots and lots.
What was the result of the vote?
Oh, sorry, the actual result of the vote. I've got you.
Yeah.
Right. So there are about 400 odd still Labour MPs, a little bit more than that. They were very much flagship policy, manifesto policy. Big promises from Angela Rayner, will ban Section 21 from day one and all the rest of it. So they would have had to be with. Lib Dems probably took a position against or abstained, I'd imagine, because they don't generally approve the Labour Party approach. Conservatives originated the bill, so in theory should have been in some support of some of it, but they're in still formal, His Majesty's formal opposition at this time. None of us knowing what's going to happen at the next election. SNP, what would they have done? I don't suppose they were. I suppose they would probably have abstained because we're only dealing with England here, so they wouldn't have got involved. They've only got 9 MPs these days, so that's not as big a deal as it once would have been. So let's say, but then would have been many who were keen on showing signalling for this. I think we're going to say something like 478 to 100, with the rest abstaining, Duncan, something like that.
Once again, Adam, you're pretty much in the ballpark, but I'm afraid I'm not going to give it you.
Christmas, Duncan, for goodness sake, mate.
No, I'm not. There's no presents. Christmas is past. This is strictly business now. So you were on the money that the Conservatives did oppose it. They were the bulk of the opposition. There was some reform presence as well. I think probably must be most of the Reform MPs anyway. But there were the only two parties who voted against it. There was a kind of coalition of parties that voted for it, including all of the Ulster parties. And it was 439 to 112. So, yeah, good effort, but I'm afraid no cigar there. So we will move on to the next question. According to the website of Garrison Property Services, what is Adam Lawrence's top bucket list item?
Oh gosh.
Like that, yeah.
Well,
I think this may have been written a while ago, and I have a feeling you may not have revisited it since. But I thought I'd ask you to just see what your own knowledge about yourself is, because you're so clever about everything else.
I'm going to fail this one epically, Duncan. Now, I definitely did write it back when we wrote the website. Top bucket list item.
It's like when you have to log into the bank and they ask you what your favourite pet is, or something
That's
like
right,
that. And
yeah.
you have to think back to when did I sign up for the bank?
It's the password you use once a year or less often than that. Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, Duncan, I'm not even going to guess. I really don't know. I'm going to let you have the victory on this
maybe
one.
you can tell us what is your top bucket list item if it's a chance it's still the same.
My top bucket list item at one point, and maybe it is the answer, was to attend the Berkshire Hathaway annual general meeting whilst Warren Buffett was still there. But of course, I've missed my last chance to do that now, unfortunately.
And you're not interested in going to see his successors?
Let's give him I'll give him a chance, but I think there's some shoes to fill there, Duncan.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I made you guess, Adam, because that actually is the correct answer.
That goes for that.
So well done. I think you would have been, you'd have been a bit disappointed if you hadn't had a go at that, actually. So I'm pleased I pushed it. Right. So Adam, I think we maybe need to give you some more easy ones back on the regular track. So on what day does the key provision of the Section 21 or on Section 21 evictions come into force? When
so
will
that will be the 1st of May 2026, Duncan, a seminal date in UK housing law, most significant date since I believe it was June 1988. Was it when the Housing Act was updated to the Housing Act 88, which I think came into pass in about January 1989, if I recall correctly. So yeah, big changes in the market coming up this year.
Well, it's very good. You've actually preempted my next question, Adam, which was going to be when was Section 21 introduced? And the answer I was looking for was actually when did it get royal assent and when did it come into force? So I think you said, did you say June?
I think June 88 royal assent, and I think it's force in Jan 89. Yeah.
Okay, so it actually got royal assent in November 88, and it came into force on January the 15th, 1989. So
I'll take that. I
think I'll give you half a point for that because you did get a bit of it. And
hey,
also,
look, absolutely transformed the rental market of stop the 1970s Rigby rising damp style landlords, changed the market immeasurably, and also helped to mop up what was kicked off in the right to buy process.
Right. So another one I think you probably get, and hopefully many of our viewers will get as well. How many homes were constructed in 2025, according to the planning figures?
So this is completions, just to be clear?
Yeah, I think so. Well, you tell me. Right. I think you probably know more about this one than I do.
Planning approvals, I think there were about 204,000 planning approvals.
That's actually the question. That's actually the answer I was looking for.
Right. Okay. So not all of those will get built, which people need to be aware of. There are currently just in London 280,000 high-risk buildings, as they're now called, buildings over 18 metres that have got permission but are not yet under construction or are not finished. So that gives you a rough idea of how much in the pipeline, work in progress, or in many of these cases not in progress, that there is, Duncan, at the moment.
And this isn't part of the question, but how many do the government need to build to hit their target?
From here so how many have they managed in 18 months? Probably around about 300,000 or so, if that. So they need another 1.2 million in 3.5 years. A capacity impossibility other than anything else, Duncan.
Right. I don't want to. I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you again, Adam. You actually got that wrong. It wasn't 204,000. It was 208,000. Good money
Oh,
figures. I think you're fine. So again, within a whisker, but just not close enough. So no
you're a
cigars
tough
this Christmas.
quizmaster, mate. I'll tell you that. You're a toughest of quizmasters.
Right. Which
Pax Vanesque.
1920? See, here's a different question. Quite a different subject. Again, moving back to the landlord theme. Which 1920s Aston Villa footballer was shot dead by his landlord?
Now, this one I do know, thanks to your excellent podcast on this subject, which I would. This is the perfect day to tell people about this because they're desperate for some Christmas listening. The turkey has been demolished and all the rest of it. So the footballer's name was Tommy Ball, and his landlord was called George Stagg, if that's the next question. And Duncan's podcast on the subject, The Murder That Changed English Football. Does it say allegedly afterwards? I can't remember.
It
Maybe
does
it
say
does.
allegedly afterwards, yes,
Right.
because it isn't entirely clear whether it was a murder, and it isn't clear how much it changed English football, but I think it did. Yeah, very good, Adam. I just wanted to test that you told me that you'd listened to it, but I wanted to check if you'd actually been paying attention. You obviously have. So very good. Right, back to the economics themes now. So how many housing ministers, not secretaries of state, but how many housing ministers has the UK had since 2020?
So we've got 5 years, or 6 years, I suppose, if you count 2020 inclusive counting. We will have had more than 6 because that's how that post operated, certainly under the last government. And of course, we have had a little bit of chopping and changing, although I'm thinking at the Secretary of State level, of course, with Angela Rayner. I'm going to go for 8, Duncan.
8. Okay. How many of them can you name? Can you name any of them?
I must say, I deliberately don't commit their names to memory because they don't hang around often enough. So, but Matthew Pennycook has been a consistent. So we have
No.
had Matthew Pennycook for well, it's 18 months now, isn't it? So there'd have to be 7 other Conservative ones for that to be correct.
Okay. So are you ready? I'll start at the beginning. So at the beginning of 2020, the incumbent was Esther McVeigh.
I remember.
We moved through to Christopher Pincher, Stuart
Oh,
Andrew.
the legendary, the man who brought down Boris Johnson, arguably.
Yep. Certainly had an influence, but I don't know how much on housing, to be honest. Stuart Andrew. So that's 1, 2, 3. Marcus Jones, 4. Lee Rowley is 5. Lucy Fraser is 6. Rachel McLean is 7. Lee Rowley again. Now, do I count this as 2 or just 1? I was going to count it as 2, but I don't think it is. I think it's 1. Which would be 1,
So we're still on 7.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then Matthew Pennycock.
Yes,
So
a win.
that is truly impressive because I actually thought the answer was 9 because I didn't notice Lee Rowley was in twice.
I can't remember at least 4 of those names that you said, and bear in mind I pay fairly close attention to this stuff, Duncan.
You've beaten the quizmaster again. Right. So moving on. Who had a hit single? I'm sorry, I've just lost my questions here. Who had a hit single? That's not the question. With Rent in 1987.
Oh,
I told you there wasn't a music round, but there is a music question.
you
But it is
did
possibly
false pretenses and all that. Absolutely not
I
strong on
suspect this
music
may
as a
be a
general
weakness.
rule. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Let's go with Huey Lewis and the News. I don't know.
It was the Pet Shop Boys who sang Rent. The first line, "You dress me up, I'm your puppet," for future reference if you ever need
I'm
that
going to be
one.
playing it accordingly when we're done with this, Duncan. Absolutely.
But that was a big miss from you, Adam. So it's really that's gonna impact your overall score, I'm afraid.
98% in danger.
What proportion, moving back to your specialist subject, of UK residential properties are rented?
So rented. Now there's a slight chance of a trap in this question, really, because the answer is 35% according to the most recent English housing survey. But then that is split into privately rented and socially rented, which would be 19% private, 16% social. Just to circumvent any traps or arguments with the quizmaster.
Well, actually, the numbers I have here are 19% private, 17% social.
Oh, but it's 65%. 65% owner occupier. So, which doesn't surprise me. These surveys often add up to 101%. So, Well, I'll have to lobby the audience for that one, Duncan. See what they think. I think.
Yeah, well, if you think Adam should get it, let me know in the comments, and I'll maybe be generous on this because there is an argument that he probably has a better idea on this than the official statistics. And so, what would be the proportion in the US, Adam? Next question.
Excellent question, and that is tougher. So, UK compares sort of middle of the road-ish to most Western developed countries in terms of the percentages of ownership and the likes. US, you do tend to earn more money as a rule, whereas housing isn't necessarily that much more expensive outside of some of the mega cities where it is kind of ridiculous. Obviously, the big population centers in the US are your New Yorks and your bits of California and things, although there are some very affordable bits of California. I'm going to go 70% ownership, 30% rent in the US, Dunk.
It's actually 65.2% owner occupied in the US. So very, very similar.
Incredibly close to the UK. Right, interesting.
Yeah. So no, can't have that. And then what about in Argentina?
Oh. Now. So the tendency would be to think that there would be less ownership in Argentina. It doesn't.
You might think that.
Doesn't often work like that, though, necessarily. It's quite interesting when you look at the economics as a rule, housing economics in Eastern European countries and things like that, how it's not exactly what you think it might be. But again, you have got a mega city in Buenos Aires. I'm not completely au fait with the population of Argentina, but I think it's not as high as many might think. So with lots in the city, with a lot of urban population, I'd expect home ownership percentage to be lower. That's the logic that I'm going to go with. So I'm going to go with 55% ownership, 45% rent.
You're way out there. You've gone the wrong way. 68.9% owner occupied, which has fallen during the economic difficulties that the country suffered over the last decade or two. But
interesting.
Yes, but still higher than it is in the UK, which I found surprising too. Many of our viewers will be disappointed to know a final question, Adam, and it's another one about you. So what is the worst property deal that Adam Lawrence has ever done?
I think there's a relatively easy one, actually. And of course, I have to get this right by definition because I don't think there's necessarily a public record.
I have to confess, I don't know the answer. I'm kind of relying on you to get this right. If you get it wrong, I'm
at least it's a guaranteed win. Yeah, I lost money, but it's a guaranteed win on this question, so it kind of washes out, doesn't it? So I bought a potential development once with a JV partner, and he had incorrectly measured the top floor. So what he thought could be converted into 2 flats under permitted development actually had to go through the planning system in order to see if it could be converted to 2 flats, because he was about 3 square meters out, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's enough to make a difference in these situations. Now, the planning authority was the notorious Bristol home of all planning appeals and graveyard for most planning applications, Duncan, if I'm honest with you. So in fact, we didn't even try. We sold it off at we bought it from an auction. We sold it at another auction at an accepted loss. Big fat waste of time, energy and effort, and probably 25k that would have looked better in our respective banks to the poorer for not having. And I would have thought, this is why you use these laser measures and things like that. You don't make mistakes like this, but there we go. I'm as accountable as my partner for that mistake.
Adam? That's just the guy with the tape measure. That's just the guy with the tape measure getting it wrong and costing you 25k.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I think there's a lesson there for everybody.
Hard come, easy go. Yeah.
I hope you got a laser measurer in your stocking this year. Maybe you already have one, but I'm sure you can never have enough. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. If I just kind of tot up the totals and you can see how you did compared with Adam. So name the members of the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee. I think I'll give you full marks on that, so you can have one for that. How many times have interest rates moved in 2025? You got that. That's 4, obviously. The interest rate in Zimbabwe, you were so close, but you're not getting it. So that's
not even a half point, Chief. I mean, come on.
No, 2 out of 3. Carlos Boozer, sorry. Yep, you got his tenant, Prince. So 3 out of 4. The third reading of the Renters' Rights Bill you didn't get. You were kind of close, but not really close enough. So that's 3 out of 5. How many parties? No, we'll leave that one. The Garrison Property Services website you did get after a little bit of prompting. So 4 out of 6. When does the Section 21 provisions come into act? Yes, you got that. 5 out of 7. And then when was Section 21 first introduced? You got that it came into force in January the 15th. So I give you a half mark. So 6.5 out of 8. How many new homes were constructed according to the planning figures? Well, you were 4,000 out. So I can't give you that, I don't think, unless there's anyone in the comments who's come to your support. So that's 6.5 out of 9. You got that Tommy Ball was murdered by his landlord in 1923. 7.5 out of 10.
No point, bonus points for naming the landlord? No, nothing like that?
No. The housing minister should beat me because I would have got that wrong if I hadn't added them up again. So that's 8.5 out of 11. The single rent pet shop boys, you were well out of that. 8.5 out of 12. The proportion of UK residential properties that were rented. Ooh, so close there. Again, these percentage points. But as you pointed out at the end, Adam, these tiny margins, they can prove costly. So what's that? 7.5 out of 12, I think. Is that right?
No, 8.5 out of 13. But
8.5 out of 13.
And an extra point for correcting the quizmaster as well. Yeah.
And then you didn't get the US proportion. So 8.5 out of 14. You didn't get Argentina. 8.5 out of 15. You did get your worst ever property deal. 9.5 out of 16. Now, I'm very impressed with myself for finding a quiz where you are scoring less than 2/3. So I'm particularly pleased with that. I hope everybody at home has had a go. It's been lovely talking to you. We will be back with our regular programming, our scheduled edition next Saturday at this time. And Adam, it's been great. Been a great pleasure. Wishing everybody a good end to the festive period.
Great work, Duncan. Thank you.